Christine again from Nature's Simple Fix, and today, as promised, we're going to go ahead and make those homemade croutons, something super easy, super fast, and it varies according to how you want them to taste. And I just wanted to get this out of the way, just make one little joke before we get started. You know times are changing when you can go to the grocery store and buy this giant bad boy 24-pack of toilet paper and nobody blinks an eyelash because everybody's in line with the same thing. Not that I really need that much, I just love Panda and that's the only size they're selling it in now. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and start with the most obvious thing you're going to need for this, which is bread. Now, I like to use Italian bread or French bread. That's up to you. I always buy the ones that are made fresh in the bakery. But, again, make sure you check the ingredients to make sure there's no dairy in it, unless you don't care about them being vegan. I like to buy them in the fresh bread section of Fresh Thyme because there's very few ingredients. There might be a maximum 10, which isn't too bad for bread. And you can actually understand what all the ingredients are when you see a bunch of words you can't pronounce. That probably means you shouldn't be buying it. So, it was only $2 for this bread, and a lot of people tell you day-old bread. What you can do is what I do, which is I chop it up into the little squares, which you can see right here. And then I just leave it sit. Sorry, I thought I dropped one on the floor for a minute. You just go ahead and leave it sit overnight or sometimes 2 days depending on the weather. Right now it's really dry outside because it's cold, so that really isn't necessary to leave it quite that long. Now again, we're going to go over the ingredients. As far as the measurements, I'll tell you that as we go along because again, I kind of play a little bit with the amount I use. It depends on how strong you want a certain flavor to be. Today I'm messing around with seeing if I can make one that tastes a little bit like Caesar croutons. So it's going to be a combination of a few other things. I play with my own recipes, so this is my own little made up one. So I'm still going to use vinegar. You won't see a lot of them call for vinegar. I like vinegar. It adds a little more of a salty and a little more tangy taste without actually using a ton of salt. So I'm going to use a little bit of white balsamic and a little bit of garlic vinegar. I know a lot of people are going to say, why use it too? That's just me. I like the white balsamic. I also want that garlic punched up flavor. And of course my extra virgin olive oil. Now, if you want to definitely cut out the garlic vinegar and just use balsamic, you can use a garlic infused olive oil. I forgot to do that, which just infused just means you let it sit. You can let it sit as long as you want with a cut open piece of garlic, and eventually, you hear my oven just going off again. Eventually, it'll take up that flavor of the garlic, and then you just pull it out. Now, I'm also going to be using my freeze-dried garlic again because I like a little stronger garlic flavor. If you don't, stick with just the garlic powder like I also have. But I'm going to use the freeze-dried garlic. Now, to get one of my favorite flavors, to get more of a cheesy taste, we're going to add nutritional yeast. Now, if you haven't heard about this yet, then that means you can't be vegan yet. This is used so much in vegan cooking to get a cheese flavor, and it's the secret ingredient, one of the two secret ingredients with my cheesy potatoes. So, you'll hear a lot of times, sometimes you hear people call it nooch. Just know that that's nutritional yeast. They sell it usually in the bulk food sections, or this particular one was bought at Bueller's and with their organic and healthier sections of their food, but it gets a little pricier that way. It's much cheaper if you just buy it in bulk food. It might say that it's $15, $16 a pound. Guys, this stuff doesn't weigh a lot, so usually what you're going to end up paying for an entire filled up large container. Oh, let me grab one of mine. It's sitting over here drying in the sink. You fill up a container like this, and it's going to cost you a few dollars because it doesn't weigh anything. And I'm also this time going to add what I usually don't use in addition to that, but I'm going to use a little bit of the Follow Your Heart Grated Parmesan. I'm not going to use a lot of this because the nutritional yeast will handle most of the cheesy flavor. Parsley. Now I have mine already mixed in here together because I used our garden stuff again. A little bit of fresh thyme. You can also use dried. I just decided to use fresh because we have fresh right now. And I also sprinkled in a little bit of oregano. And the reason it's already in here is because, again, this is my garden oregano that I dried and found still growing in the garden a few months ago when things were starting to die out, obviously, and everything was gone. And I realized I still had some Greek oregano. Also, garlic powders we already talked about, onion powder, and salt and pepper. That's a given. Now again, I would prefer the grinders. That's just me. I think it tastes a little bit better. So we're going to start pouring all the ingredients into the bowl first, preheating your oven to 375 because these cook very fast. They cook 10, sometimes maybe 15 minutes, but most of them are 10 minutes. And you're going to flip them once in between, once they're on that pan. And again, parchment paper on your pan. So we're going to go ahead and start with the most obvious first ingredient, the olive oil. So again, you're going to notice I'm just going to pour. But if you want to measure it, it's approximately 1/3 to 1/2 cup oil. What I like to do is if it starts to look like I still need some more, I'll just pour it in there. If it doesn't look like things are coating enough to the bread cubes. So again, I'm going to assume that you've already chopped up all your bread. And you've already dried it. So that's just going to be in little cubes. Your garlic vinegar. And that's approximately, I would say, 3 teaspoons or 1 tablespoon. And again, white balsamic vinegar, about the same amount. So it's not a lot, but it's enough to get that flavor going. And I'm just going to move these out of the way. Alright, then you're going to add your freeze-dried garlic. Now you're not going to need a lot of this, so you may want to measure it again. I'm not really big on measuring when it comes to seasonings, unless it's something like we were making the last time where I feel like it's going to be a problem if I get too much in there. So, just going to sprinkle a little bit. So I would say it's about 1 to 2 teaspoons because you're only putting in there about enough for maybe 1 to 2 bulbs of garlic. You're going to go ahead and add your nutritional yeast. Now this I use a little bit more of. This is 1 to 2 tablespoons. Which actually I'm going to use the other setting for this. It'll be faster to get it out. Now this I might add more of depending on if I need it. So actually I'll leave it over here just in case. Parmesan. Now again, this I am going to watch a little more because I don't want to get too much in there. So again, this will be approximately 1 tablespoon. So I've probably got about 2 tablespoons of the nutritional yeast in there because I like the taste of that. And you'll notice it adds more of a salty taste to your food too, again, without really using salt. So parsley. Now you'll see other recipes for these, I'm sure, that will call for less parsley. It's, again, what you like. So I'm going to add approximately 1 tablespoon. Now, if you want to make just regular Italian breadcrumbs, you're going to nix out the nutritional yeast, the vinegar, and I still like to use vinegar in mine, but you can leave out the vinegar and use an Italian seasoning instead, and leave out the oregano, the thyme, and any cheese ingredients. Adding the oregano and the thyme, and again, this is already measured, so it's approximately 2 teaspoons of each. Garlic powder, 1 to 2 teaspoons. Onion powder, same thing, 1 to 2 teaspoons. Salt and pepper. And again, this goes according to your taste. I didn't used to like pepper when I was younger, but I do now, so I use a lot more now. Now, again, you want to watch how much salt you use. And I'm not going to give people lectures about using too much salt. All I'm going to say is there's always going to be salt in bread, unless you've made it yourself. So, you want to watch how much of that you use. And again, the other thing I may add a little more of is garlic powder, so I'm going to leave that over to the side also. Mix it up a little bit. You notice it's going to be nice and creamy. I'm going to add just a little more olive oil. And it also should smell really good. So I'm going to add a little more garlic powder too, I think. Because these are going to mimic Caesar croutons, so I want them to really smell garlicky. And again, a little more nutritional yeast. Now, once you have that stirred up well, you're going to slowly start adding the breadcrumbs, or bread. Excuse me, they're not breadcrumbs yet, right? Or excuse me, not croutons yet. Mixing them up. All right, now I'm going to add the rest. See how easy that is? And these are so much better than what you can buy in the grocery store. I don't care what anybody says. When I first made these for my mom, let's just say we haven't bought croutons since. Now, as long as you stay away from, if you're going to make this and not make it vegan, and a lot of people use butter, keep in mind that's going to keep you from being able to leave them sit out. Okay, you're going to have to eat them a little faster. Now, you can use the vegan butter on them and leave them sit out a little longer, because the one I prefer to use, Earth Balance, if you look at the ingredients, it's mostly oil. So that doesn't cause any problems. That's another reason I was watching how much of the vegan cheese I use, because that affects also how long they can be sitting out. Now you're going to just keep mixing these until they're completely coated. Now again, if you've done what I did, which I like to dry mine out a little bit more than most people, it does take a little bit more to get the stuff to fully stick. It's a lot of stirring again, just like with the last recipe I made. But here's the advantage to drying them out a little bit more. When you don't do that, all your ingredients immediately are going to soak into the bread, and you're going to have to keep adding more and more and more. And that's not only going to get pricey, it's going to get a little salty. It's going to take away from what you're trying to accomplish. Just something a little more fresh, a little more healthy. So you'll notice these are already starting to really look great. Now, some of them, yes, are going to have a little more coating on them. That's fine. And you know what? It's really a shame you can't smell these, because right now, these definitely smell like Caesar croutons. Finally, I found my own Caesar recipe. Now again, you're welcome to leave the oil out of it and use the butter instead. Of course, it stands to reason you're going to melt it first. I would still, if you're going to do that though, use a little bit of oil. I don't think it's going to come out quite right. Whoops. If you don't have a little bit of oil in there. Now, those that are thinking, okay, enough with the cooking videos, I want to do some workouts now. I am going to do the lower body workout I promised you. It was just a little delayed because I was having one of those delayed little post-COVID reactions, and I was having a lot of fatigue this week, so it slowed me down a little bit. But I'm feeling a little better today, so we're going to go ahead and take care of that today. For those who live in the Massillon area, I'll be starting Zumba Gold Toning at Massillon next week. All right. I think I'm just going to add just a little more oil. Just a little bit, though, to help with some of the mixture to still stick to it. All right, next thing you're going to do is just pour the bread onto your pan that you already have your parchment paper on. 375 for the oven again. Cooking them for 10 minutes, but you're going to check them in 5 to flip them. Now again, I'm using my favorite little spatula spoon because it gets things out really well out of the pans, or excuse me, the bowls. So that's just my personal favorite one. Now again, this goes without saying, you don't want things overlapping again. So you're going to spread them all out. Some of this little coating is sticking together, so you just want to make sure you sprinkle that around. Don't worry, it'll stick on there as it cooks. Now you'll notice the picture that I attached on this video. The croutons may look a teeny bit different. Those are the Italian breadcrumbs that I made. And instead of using this type of balsamic vinegar that I used a red wine balsamic vinegar. So it changed the color of them a little bit too. And I used Italian seasoning with that. All right, that is all there is to it. You can just put them in the oven, like I said, for 10 minutes. Check them after 5 to flip them. If they still need cooked a little longer, you want them a little bit brown, but obviously not burnt. And that's all there is to it, and they taste great. All right, everybody, thank you for coming, and I hope I will see you the next time I do a cooking video. Bye.